My husband accused me of cheating in front of everyone at his mother's retirement dinner. So I connected my phone to the television. The moment his cousin whispered, "Mara, please don't," the entire room understood that Owen had made a terrible mistake. The dining room smelled of rosemary chicken, vanilla frosting, and the expensive cedar candles his mother saved for special occasions. A silver banner reading, "Congratulations, Diane," stretched above the windows. On the television, photographs from 30 years of hospital work faded into one another. Diane in blue scrubs, Diane holding newborns, Diane smiling beside co-workers whose names nobody remembered. 23 relatives and friends were scattered between the dining table, the sofa, and a row of rented chairs near the kitchen. They held dessert plates and half-finished glasses of wine. Conversations overlapped until Owen stepped into the center of the room and tapped a spoon against his glass. Then everything went quiet. "Tell them, Mara," he said. His voice was controlled, almost tender. It was the voice he used when he wanted to sound reasonable before saying something cruel. I stayed beside the fireplace, one hand resting on the strap of my bag. "Tell them where you've really been going on Thursday nights." A few people looked at me, others looked away. Diane froze beside the cake, the knife suspended over white icing. Owen's uncle lowered his fork so slowly that it scraped across the plate. Near the hallway, a little girl stopped pushing a wooden train and stared at the adults. Children always notice the exact second a room becomes unsafe. Owen took a breath, as if this performance were difficult for him. "Are you having an affair?" No one moved. We had been married for 8 years, and I had imagined many versions of the moment our marriage might end. I had imagined shouting, slammed doors, perhaps a confession spoken in the dark. I had never imagined lemon cake, retirement flowers, and Owen placing me on trial in front of his entire family. What surprised me was how calm I felt. My hands did not shake, my breathing stayed even. I did not look at Owen, I looked at Natalie. She was sitting on the edge of the sofa in a dark red dress, her knees pressed together, both hands gripping a folded napkin. Natalie was Owen's cousin, though they had grown up more like siblings. She was usually the loudest person at family gatherings. That night, she looked as if she had forgotten how to breathe. Her face had gone pale, her eyes were fixed on my bag. She was not confused by Owen's accusation. She was terrified of what I might do next. And suddenly, every strange moment from the previous year arranged itself into a single clear picture. The private jokes, the unexplained errands, the messages that stopped whenever I entered a room, the way Natalie always found a reason to stand beside him in photographs. I reached into my bag. For the first time, Owen's expression changed. "What are you doing?" he asked.
I took out my phone and walked toward the television. Owen stepped into my path. "Mara, don't turn this into a scene." A few people shifted. He had stopped the music, gathered everyone's attention, and accused me of betraying him. But somehow, I was still creating the scene. I moved around him. The television was displaying Diane's retirement photos. I unplugged the media box, attached the adapter from my bag, and mirrored my phone to the screen. In their place appeared a folder labeled Property Documents. I had chosen the name because Owen never opened household paperwork. For 6 weeks, the folder had held messages, bank statements, photographs, and recordings. A backup was already with my attorney. Natalie rose halfway from the sofa. "Mara," she whispered, "please don't." Not, "What is that?" Not, "What are you doing?" "Please don't." Everyone heard her. Owen turned toward her so quickly that several people followed his gaze. Diane lowered the cake knife. She looked from Owen to Natalie, then at me. I opened the first file. Before I pressed play, Owen reached for my wrist. "Give me the phone." I stepped back. His older brother Marcus stood. He said nothing, but Owen stopped moving toward me. I pressed play. Owen's voice filled the room. It was softer than the voice he used with me. Warm, intimate. "You looked beautiful tonight," the recording began. I hated pretending I wasn't watching you. Then Natalie laughed. The sound lasted less than 2 seconds, but it changed the room. Someone near the kitchen gasped. Diane sat down without looking for the chair. Marcus stared at Owen as though he had become a stranger. I paused the recording. "That's edited," Owen said. "You don't know the context." "I know 14 months of context." Natalie covered her mouth. "I have the full message history from the account under your old university email. I have the hotel receipts, the transfers from our savings, and the recordings you backed up to the family cloud." Shock vanished from Owen's face. Calculation replaced it. I knew that face. He was searching for the reality most useful to him. He turned to the room. "She invaded my privacy. She's been spying on me." For 8 years, I had explained myself whenever Owen demanded it. I explained why traffic made me late, why a coworker called after 6, why I bought coffee before work. I offered receipts, calendars, messages, and apologies for things that required none. This time, I offered nothing. Instead, I opened the next file. Before I tell you what everyone saw, I need to explain how I learned to stop defending myself. It began 16 months earlier at a hotel overlooking Lake Michigan.
At first, it looked like concern. Owen appeared beside me with a smile that never reached his eyes. His hand settled against my back, gentle enough to look affectionate, firm enough to steer me toward the elevators. In the taxi, he asked how long I had known Simon. Since tonight, you seemed comfortable with him. We were talking about plants. Owen watched the city lights slide across the window. I just want us to be honest, he said. That sentence became his favorite weapon. 3 weeks later, he questioned a message from my former roommate, Elise. Her flight had been canceled. Owen asked why I answered so quickly and whether I had hidden something from him. I showed him the conversation. He apologized beautifully. He said work had made him paranoid, that he hated the person he became when he feared losing me, and promised it would never happen again. I believed him, because apologies sound like change when you still love someone. But the questions continued. A pharmacy receipt became an interrogation about 37 missing minutes. A missed call became a discussion about who had been with me. Once I thanked a bartender, and Owen spent the drive home asking whether I enjoyed flirting. Each incident was small enough to survive. Together, they reshaped my life. I answered before he asked, sent photographs from restaurants, and shared my location during work trips. I stopped mentioning certain coworkers because their names caused long silences. Then I started keeping notes. Not for court or revenge. I wrote because I was beginning to distrust my memory. April 11th, 8:26 p.m. Asked why grocery trip took 52 minutes. April 19th, 11:08 p.m. Read message from Elise, apologized afterward. May 2nd, 6:40 p.m. Accused me of deleting call history. Nothing deleted. My therapist, Dr. Lena Ortiz, read 3 months of entries without interrupting. Her office was above an Evanston bakery, and cinnamon drifted into the waiting room. When she finished, she placed my phone on the table. Mara, this is coercive control. I hated the phrase. It sounded too serious for a husband who had never hit me. Too clinical for arguments that ended with apologies and flowers. He says he's scared, I told her. Fear can explain behavior, she said. It does not excuse a pattern designed to make you smaller. I drove home and sat in the parking garage for 18 minutes. Owen was upstairs making pasta. He kissed my forehead, asked about therapy, and opened wine. For one evening, he was the man I married. That was what made it difficult. The discovery came 7 weeks before Diane's retirement dinner. It was Saturday morning. Owen was showering. His tablet lay on the kitchen counter, connected to our shared account. A notification appeared. The sender was saved as N. The preview read, "I can still feel your hand under the table last night." I did not touch the tablet. I stared until it disappeared. Then another arrived. Next time, she cannot be there.
I read the notification twice before the screen went dark. N. Natalie. The initial was not proof, but it changed everything. I made coffee. I listened to the shower down the hall. Then I opened my laptop and began thinking like a project manager instead of a wife. For 16 months, Owen had trained me to explain every movement before he questioned it. He had also taught me something useful. Information mattered most before the other person knew you had it. I did not confront him. That afternoon, I called an attorney named Celeste Warren. She had spent 24 years handling high-conflict divorces and spoke with the precision of someone who had watched panic ruin good cases. I told her about the accusations, the notes, and the messages from N. "You haven't mentioned this to him?" she asked. "No." "Good. Keep it that way." 2 days later, I sat in her office overlooking the Chicago River. She read my log, asked about our accounts, and requested every device connected to the household cloud. Then she referred me to a digital forensic analyst named Eric Duval. Eric worked from a quiet office in Oak Park with 3 locked cabinets. He had spent 15 years recovering data for criminal and civil cases. Nothing in my story surprised him. I brought the family tablet, my laptop, and the credentials for the shared account. Within an hour, he found a second profile Owen had created 11 months earlier under a variation of an old university address. It synced messages, photographs, and voice recordings whenever his phone connected to our home Wi-Fi. Eric did not let me search through it myself. "We preserve first," he said. "Then we review." He created an encrypted image of the account, documented every step, and recovered deleted files from 3 devices. The review took 4 days. When I returned, Eric placed a small black drive on the desk between us. "I'm sorry," he said. There were 14 months of messages between Owen and Natalie. Not flirtation, not one drunken mistake. A relationship. They had met in hotels, borrowed a friend's apartment, and spent weekends together while Owen claimed to be visiting construction sites. They discussed when he would leave me and how much money he could move without attracting attention. The worst part was not the photographs. It was reading his complaints about my supposed dishonesty in messages sent minutes after he questioned me. "She was 40 minutes late again. She smiled at some guy tonight. I think she's hiding something." Natalie encouraged him. "Keep asking questions. Guilty people get defensive." I sat in Eric's parking lot with the drive on the passenger seat and realized the interrogations had never been about jealousy. They were preparation. If Owen could make me look unfaithful, unstable, or secretive, he could control the story when he finally left. I called Celeste. "How bad is it?" she asked. 14 months, I said. "And they've been planning the divorce." She was silent for a moment. "Then we plan yours first."
For the next 5 weeks, I lived inside a performance. Owen believed I knew nothing.
He complained about work, kissed me goodnight, and kept asking where I had been whenever I came home late. Meanwhile, Celeste filed a preliminary petition and documented everything we owned: the house in Wilmette, the investment account, our retirement funds, and Owen's share in the design firm. She hired a forensic accountant named Priya Shah. Priya found the first irregular transfer within 2 days. Over the previous year, Owen had moved money from our joint accounts into a private account in amounts small enough to look ordinary: $7,000 here, $8,000 there. Payments labeled consulting fees, equipment deposits, and travel reimbursements. The total was $92,000. He's building an exit fund, Priya said, and he used marital income to do it. Celeste obtained every statement. I made 3 backups. One stayed with Eric, one went to Celeste, and the third was stored in a cloud folder called appliance warranties. During those weeks, Owen became unusually pleasant. He brought home flowers, cooked dinner twice, and suggested a weekend in Wisconsin to reconnect. I understood the kindness now. It was not love returning. It was confidence. He believed his plan was working. 3 days before Diane's retirement dinner, Owen asked whether I still saw Simon Hale. I was folding towels. "I saw him at the company dinner," I said. "That's not what I asked." For a moment, I saw the performance waiting behind his eyes. He wanted me frightened and eager to prove something. "No," I said. He smiled. "Good, I trust you." That was when I knew he was preparing to accuse me publicly. I did not know where or when, but he wanted witnesses. On the afternoon of the dinner, I spent 2 hours preparing. At 3:12 p.m., I copied the evidence folder to my phone. At 3:19, I scheduled the key files to email Celeste and Eric the next morning unless I canceled it. At 3:25, I placed the television adapter in my bag. Then I put on a black dress, drove to Highland Park, and helped arrange flowers as though I still belonged there. Owen waited until dessert. Now, standing before the television, I opened the second file. A spreadsheet appeared on the screen. Dates, account numbers, transfers. $92,000, I said, moved from marital funds into an account Owen opened last year. Diane stared at the columns as if she could force them to rearrange themselves. Owen laughed once, a sharp, empty sound. "That money was for business expenses. Then your attorney can explain the hotel charges attached to the same account." Natalie began crying. Not loudly, tears simply ran down her face while she remained still. I opened a message thread. Owen's words appeared against the dark screen. "Once the money is secure, I'll tell everyone she cheated first. Mom will believe me. Mara always over-explains when she's nervous." No one spoke. I turned toward him. "You were right about one thing," I said. "I used to over-explain." I picked up my bag. I don't anymore.
Owen moved before I reached the door. He stepped between me and the hallway, his face flushed now, the careful calm gone. "You can't just walk out after doing this." Marcus rose again. "Owen," he said quietly, "move." For several seconds, neither man looked away. Then Owen stepped aside. I turned to Diane. "I'm sorry this happened during your dinner." She looked at me with both hands folded tightly in her lap. Her expression was not anger. It was the shock of someone watching a familiar person become unfamiliar. "Did you know?" she asked Natalie. Natalie lowered her head. That was answer enough. I left before anyone could ask me to stay. Outside, cold air struck my face. I walked to my car without running, locked the doors, and called Celeste. "He did it," I said. "Public accusation?" "Yes. And you showed them?" "Enough." Celeste exhaled. "Good. Go to the apartment we arranged. Do not return home tonight. He will be served tomorrow at 9. The apartment belonged to a friend of hers who traveled often. It was small, furnished, and anonymous. I slept there with my phone on the bedside table and the encrypted drive beneath the mattress, even though copies already existed in 4 places. At 8:57 the next morning, Owen sent his first message. "We need to talk before this gets worse." At 9:14, "You humiliated my mother." At 9:32, "Natalie is saying you manipulated the recordings." At 10:06, "Please come home. I'm sorry. We can fix this privately." The order mattered. First control, then blame, then denial, finally apology. I forwarded everything to Celeste and did not reply. Owen was served outside his office. According to the process server, he read the first page twice, looked around to see who had noticed, and asked whether the documents could be taken back. They could not. The weeks that followed felt like a building being dismantled one measured section at a time. Owen's attorney, Grant Keller, opened aggressively. He accused me of unlawful surveillance, emotional manipulation, and damaging Owen's professional reputation. Then Celeste sent the forensic report. Eric's documentation showed that every file had been recovered from devices and accounts I legally shared. Priya's report traced the $92,000 into the hidden account and connected thousands more to hotels, restaurants, and gifts. Grant's tone changed. Within 2 weeks, he requested settlement discussions. Owen still tried to reach me directly. He called from unknown numbers. He emailed from work. Once, he left flowers outside the temporary apartment, although I had never told him the address. That frightened me more than the accusations.
Celeste obtained an emergency order requiring all communication to go through attorneys. Eric checked my phone and found a location sharing setting Owen had enabled months earlier through the family account. He had not guessed where I was. He had tracked me. The discovery added another exhibit to the case and removed the last part of me that wondered whether I had overreacted.
The divorce was finalized 5 months later. Owen agreed to settle before the first hearing. Grant had explained what the financial records, the tracking evidence, and the recovered messages would look like in open court. I kept my retirement account, half of the investment portfolio, and the full value of the money Owen had hidden, including interest and legal costs. The house was awarded to me, but I sold it before the paperwork was complete. I did not want the kitchen where I had learned to speak carefully, or the bedroom where I had stared at the ceiling, counting reasons to stay. Owen kept his share of the firm and his car. He also kept the consequences of the story he had tried to tell about me. Marcus called once, 3 weeks after the retirement dinner. He apologized for not noticing sooner. Diane sent a letter saying she wished she had protected me when Owen began questioning me in front of the family. Natalie contacted me only once. She said Owen had promised they would be together after the divorce. She said he had convinced her that I was cold, distant, and already unfaithful. She admitted that none of it excused what she had done. I saved the message for Celeste and never answered. Dr. Ortiz asked whether silence felt like punishment. No, I said. It feels like not volunteering for another argument. A year after the dinner, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near the lake. I chose it because the living room filled with sunlight and nobody else had an opinion about the neighborhood. I bought a blue sofa Owen would have hated. I hung photographs without measuring them. I planted herbs on the balcony. Most survived. The notes from those 16 months are still on my phone. I rarely read them, but I keep them because they remind me that my memory was never broken. The missing minutes were real. The questions were real. The fear I felt before opening my own front door was real. And the problem was never the pharmacy receipt, Simon Hale, or a bartender I thanked too warmly. The problem was a man who needed me to doubt myself, so I would never examine him. Celeste sent me a handwritten card when the settlement cleared. You were prepared before he knew there was a battle, it said. That changed everything. I placed it on the refrigerator. Eric sent one email, glad the evidence helped. Disable family sharing permanently. I did. Owen still lives in Chicago, as far as I know. I do not check his social media or ask about him. Whatever happened to him and Natalie belongs to a life that no longer includes me. Last Thursday, I stopped at a grocery store after work. The checkout system failed, and the line barely moved. I stood there for 51 minutes, watching rain strike the windows. When I finally reached home, no one asked where I had been. No one inspected the receipt. No one studied my face to decide whether I was lying. I placed the groceries on the counter, opened the balcony door, and listened to the rain. Freedom did not arrive as a dramatic moment in a courtroom. It arrived quietly, in ordinary evenings that required no explanation.